Good morning, everybody. We had a good 8-day run, a couple of great steps forward. In the last couple of days, a number of steps backwards. And so goes the battle for the heart and soul of the city of New Orleans, one of America's great cities. In the last 48 to 72 hours, we have had a continuation of the street violence that has been plaguing our city for a very, very long period of time and continues to do so. I want to reiterate to the people of the city of New Orleans that this is completely unacceptable. In most of these cases, once again, the perpetrators knew each other. It's something that is too common and something, again, that cannot be tolerated by anybody in this city. We as a city are fed up with this foolishness. There are people in this building at the highest levels who themselves have been witnesses of some of these heinous crimes and who have themselves been victims over time. We are all in this together. We are more united. We're better coordinated. We are meeting on a regular basis and continue to do so with our local, state, and federal partners working together to tackle the problem. As you know, we are standing up the strategic command to analyze and to react more appropriately. In the last few instances, NOPD responded quickly and appropriately, I might add, to each of these incidents with help of witnesses, residents calling in for tips, and we want to thank everybody for that. This kind of quick action and cooperation from the community is what we need to get to scenes quickly, to secure them, to arrest perpetrators, and then bring them to justice. Where the community has rallied before, in the cases of Jeremy Gallman, Curtis Matthews, and Kiara Holmes in particular, we have had great success in catching the bad guys and in taking back our streets. We're addressing this across the spectrum, both on the front end and on the back end. On the front end, as you know, we've doubled the funding for recreation. We are, this day, increasing job and workforce development opportunities. Last week, we reintroduced midnight basketball. We are, as we speak, reintroducing conflict resolution through ceasefire. We will have an announcement with the partnerships with our schools coming soon. We are, in fact, linking mental health resources with the community. An example, we are working with the Nelson School and the RSD to link counseling based on that awful episode just the other day. But on the back end, on the end where it matters immediately, we are using data more effectively to track trends. We have, as of this day, beefed up the homicide unit. We now have 30 detectives that are working in a very aggressive way. We have new deployment strategies based on data, and we are sending our resources to where the hot spots are as we speak, and we are flooding neighborhoods with homicide and narcotics detectives following these murders. This is something that we all have to work together on and win. I know sometimes it feels like the deluge is upon us, but I remain and we remain undaunted. We have to win this fight together because the future of the city depends on it. We're going to take the criminals off the streets, and we're going to do it with your help. We're going to win it because not doing so is not an option. It's a tragedy all around, and together we have to save our city. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Serpas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We want to make sure it's perfectly clear to the people who live and work and visit and love New Orleans like we do. We're taking this fight to the street. We are going after these criminals with an intensity that has not been seen in the last 18 months. The plans and changes that we put in place are making a difference. The 10-day holiday season went flawlessly. A good job done by the police. And since then, this spat of murders and shootings that we've had. Take a quick look at what happened. Jackson and Chapatoulas. Police are on the scene while the shots are being fired. They were in the right place at the right time and gave chase to the suspect vehicle, but wisely chose to end it so that they wouldn't put more people in jeopardy in the channel. Good police work on the spot, on the dime, getting good information. The double murder on St. Louis Street on January 9th. 3 minutes, police are on the scene. 12 hours, 2 people are arrested, turned themselves in. The event yesterday, 2 days ago at the school, police were where they were supposed to be, in the high crime areas, going where we've asked them to go, being at the tip of the spear in the neighborhoods where people need us the most, and the cops were there and they were doing their jobs. We're going to continue to take this fight to the streets. The Divine Street shooting yesterday. No question about it. Our officers were out there so fast on this emergency call that they were immediately following a red vehicle demonstrated by the witnesses. They found the car. As a result of that, someone chose to take the fight to the streets of New Orleans and set our people to danger, and our cops did exactly what they were trained to do. It had to happen because this man wanted to fight. We are not going to let this fight be lost. We are going to win this fight. We're taking it to the streets. I don't care how many of them have prior charges in their backgrounds. They're bad guys who want to have a bad day. The police are going to get them. We're going to put them in jail. We're going to work with the prosecutor and the courts, and we're going to keep them down. This fight is on us to take New Orleans streets, and we're going after them. And you can already see in the first 12 days of this year, we have been quicker, we've been more nimble, we've been more effective, we've been making better arrests. Mr. Copeland was able to give us some overtime now. We're using that to advance our homicide investigations. It will make a difference. It has made a difference, and it will be the future. So we're on it, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
Mayor Landrieu, have you considered calling in the National Guard?
I've talked to this issue before. The National Guard has been working with us and continues to do so, as do the state police, as do the FBI, the ATF. All of our federal and state partners are working with us at this point in time.
How do you react to the fact that you find hand grenades in the car of thugs on the street of New Orleans? War devices in a car in New Orleans by people who have already demonstrated their violence.
I react in amazement to that. And I think it really sends a strong signal what it is that we're fighting against. This is just an unbelievable turn of events, and I think people should be aware of the incredible daunting task that lay before us, the kinds of weapons that people have, the kinds of forces that we're facing. That's why it requires all hands on deck. I have been very pleased with the intensity of the police response in the last couple of months. There has been a noticeable change in how fast we have gotten to places, and we believe that you'll start seeing the consequences of that. But it is an amazing thing to even hear that.
Mr. Mayor, Superintendent, can you confirm whether or not the FBI is looking into these grenades that were found in the car?
The grenades were found in a safe, and we believe that they were collector items. They were duds. The grenades did not have an explosive capacity. They had a firing pin, but they did not have an explosive capacity. There was also a gun that was a fake gun. So these particular people, whoever put them in that safe, I'd hate to say that they were hobbies, but that's what they collected, and they were of no danger. Of course, we didn't know that at first.
Is there a federal investigation?
No, I talked to Mr. Welker last night. This is a very local matter, no problems.
Mr. Mayor, these events came right when the city was supposed to be 300,000 people, 10 spectacular days, as you called it. But obviously this outbreak, 12 people murdered, happened at the same time. Can the city still handle these major events and not have it be at the expense of other neighborhoods outside of the tourist area?
The answer is absolutely yes. There's no question about it. And this is one of the things, again, I speak to this issue many times, and I ask all of you folks that are covering this. We're dealing with two separate things that happen at one time. We obviously have the capacity, right? We obviously have the capacity to secure the city when tourists come in. We do this better than anybody else in the country. And simultaneously, we have murders like this that occur between individuals who know each other in other areas of the city. The homicide rate in this city has, since 1990, and maybe even before that, been 7 to 10 times the national average. And we have spurts like this, but the answer to those things is they're both separate and distinct. They both can be done, and we can both do them at the same time. But this is an intractable problem that has been very, very difficult. But now I think people understand, what we're dealing with. And it's going to take everybody, the coordination of the criminal justice system, the coordination of federal, state, and local officials, complete and intense focus on this particular issue as it relates to violent crime and murder.
Let me add something to that really quick.
Sure.
Let me, we've said this quite a lot, so since all of you are here at the same time, we'll get it out one time finally. When we put 700 people in the downtown core where hundreds of thousands of people come to visit this city, what would you think we should do? We should police that. But we have 1,300 cops, folks, and when we bring everybody to work, I've heard even some learned people saying, oh, well, they couldn't have possibly done that. Well, of course we did, because we put 700 people downtown, and the other 700 police officers are all working, and they're working throughout the city. I'll point to the St. Louis Street response, 3 minutes. We'll point to the Elysian Fields event 2 nights ago, where a police officer around the corner heard the gunshots, chased down the juvenile. I'll point to the school system, where we're still in the week of the events, right? The school system, where the officers were on the scene. I would really hope and help, I'd like y'all to help me get that message out. It is a red herring. Half the police department was in one place, but the rest of the police department was out doing its job in the neighborhoods, and we have one example after another where within minutes we were on critical scenes of need of police service. Let's put this to bed and quit saying that they can't exist at the same time.
They, as a matter of fact, just on that note, they in fact were there exactly when it happened in some instances. With Nelson School, the police officer was actually on the scene when it happened. They actually went out there and were there at the time before the young men turned around and shot at him. So it is not accurate that the police were not there and can't police it. They were. And that is an absolute fact.
Mary. In addition to the murders, you've had a couple dozen people wounded in shootings. You've had 2 shootings involving police. How do you deal with the perception that for residents and visitors that this is a violent, out-of-control town?
Well, perception is reality in some instances. And nobody has ever denied that New Orleans is a violent town. It is. There's no question about it. One of the things we talk about all the time and the need for families and community leaders to be involved is exactly because innocent victims can be hit by stray bullets when bad guys are doing silly things. I mean, how much more awful can it be than the death of Jeremy Gowman or Kiara? And this is why the entire community has to be engaged in this fight. You cannot put a police officer on every corner in the city of New Orleans. And if you did, I'm not sure that that would work either. So that is not the only answer. Good, aggressive police work is a very important part of it. The criminal justice system working is an important part of it, the front end and the back end. And again, you're seeing a spurt that we've had. We have had these over a long, long period of time. We have a very, very difficult problem, but we're going to stay with the fight, and we're going to get it right. Sure. The chief wants to add something to that.
Let's keep these things in perspective, too, because it's a very good question. What you are seeing today is the beginning of a police department that is re-engaging the battle in the street. It should be of no surprise to you that when the police are out there aggressive as they have been, constitutionally performing their duties, there's going to be people that push back to see how serious we are. At the school event, our officers acted perfectly and did not feel the need or the demand to return fire because nobody else was at risk. On the event at Press and Chef, they felt the need. Our officers are engaging the criminals more and more. Look at the data. If 85% or 82% of the people we arrest for murder have prior felony charges, we are arresting dangerous people a lot.
I talked to people yesterday who said, you know what, these guys don't fear the police in New Orleans. Why do you think they are so willing to take on officers with weapons?
Well, I think there's first off, it's a very small number in a lot of period of time, but it occurred within 2 days. When people choose to shoot at the police, they've made a decision that's pretty dramatic in their life. It doesn't happen much. You know, just last week, Jefferson Parish had the same incident. There are going to be some people who choose to go down with a battle, and if that's the case, we are trained, we are prepared, we will respond in kind, and then we will stop at the minute the threat is over. That's just what we do. And our officers do some very brave and dangerous things every day, and I'm very proud of them. And in these 2 events, they acted perfectly. As we can tell from the data today, they did exactly what they were supposed to do when they didn't return fire, and it appears from the record now they did what they were supposed to do when they did return fire.
Do you think that will serve as a deterrent?
I think it clearly sends the message that this is a well-trained, well-disciplined, well-motivated police department that's going to provide the service the way it has to based upon what's given to it.
Let me respond to that question a little bit more broadly. First of all, you actually hear the strains of it in this room. Some people are too afraid of the police, and then some people are not afraid of the police enough. Sometimes the police are being too aggressive, or sometimes the police are not. You ask the question, are those individuals afraid of the police? Well, they're not really afraid of anybody because they have found a way in their brain not to value life. And so I speak a lot about the culture of death on the streets of New Orleans. That's not just a police issue, it's an all of us issue that we have to work towards. And again, as the police department gets better at what they're doing, right, we all have to work on the front end and the back end. And again, I've described earlier all of the steps that we're taking as a city to do that, but the community's got to do that as well. And, you know, we got to get it right. Yes, ma'am.
Some people think it might be connected to Katrina because these kids were young when now they're 16.
Well, you know, again, this is we want to talk to the smartest people in the country about why cultures get the way they get. And, you know, an argument that people have made is that all of the safety nets that existed before Katrina got completely frayed. And as we're trying to rebuild the fabric of our community, many of those have gotten frayed as well. So everybody here has recognized that restoring the mental health services, or something that was really important, making sure the school system's back up and operating, making sure NARD is working well. All of those things that disappeared shortly after Katrina, right, may have affected these individuals in a way that now where they are in their life, they didn't have the kinds of things they needed to start making good decisions. And that is not of comfort to people who got held up yesterday. And so I perfectly understand, and I hope everybody here understands, we're dealing with an immediate problem today, and we're dealing with a long-term problem, and we have to do them both at the same time. We're completely committed to it, and we will try to get at it every which way that we can.
Last two, Matt.
Now, you
Matt,
mentioned Operation
Brandon.
Ceasefire earlier. How are efforts going to actually hire personnel for Operation Ceasefire? How many people do you actually have on the street doing that work, and which neighborhoods are they?
Correct. So the community understands this. This is a best practice program that worked fairly well in Chicago that we have adopted, much like the Milwaukee Homicide Review Panel, and there's some others that we will be taking from other jurisdictions. James Carter has been running that effort for us. It's going very well. Up to this point, they have, in fact, engaged in the community, but I'm going to call on James to answer your question specifically.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The ceasefire initiative is situated in the Central City area. We're looking at other areas, the implementation, but it will hire about 14 individuals. We're in the process of doing it right now. The full battery of the ceasefire will stand up in February.
Great. Last question from Brendan.
You gentlemen have said about taking the fight to the streets, hot spots, deploying all these cops, but this is very likely one of the smallest staff police departments in kind of modern history. We've heard for decades that we need more police officers.
That's actually not factually correct. We have more police officers per capita on the police department in New Orleans than any other city our size in America. No. That's a fact.
But
Brandon, I don't want to argue. Wait, restate. The premise of your question was factually inaccurate. We have more police officers per capita on the police force in the city of New Orleans today than every other major American city our size.
But Mr. Mayor,
Is that excuse me? I understand, but that's the fact. Now you can ask your question based on that fact.
On a per capita rate, certainly, as you stated, we have a high number of
Correct.
per people. Nonetheless, as far as the New Orleans Police Department, 1,700, 1,500 cops, we're down now to.
We had, but again, you're not being. I'm not going to let you do this because the people have to hear this correctly. We had 1,700 when we had 480,000 people in the city. Okay, so now that we're going to compare apples and apples, we're doing 10 times the national murder rate. All right, well, in last year in New York, so the people can understand this, New York had 600 murders. Last year in New Orleans, we had 199. Ours is 10 times the national average because we have 343,000 people, and New York has 8 million. That doesn't eliminate the fact that 600 people got killed in New York. So when y'all say we're the murder capital of the world, I think sometimes people mishear what it is. In 1996, we had 400 or so murders. Last year, we had 199. So when you go to the issue of the city being out of control, right, it permits numbers that are not actually correct. And it's important for the numbers to get right so that the reaction is right and it's well focused. For a city that has 343,000 people, to have 1,300 or so officers means that we are spending more on police than other cities are spending. 56% of our budget is spent on that. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need more. It doesn't mean that we don't be more aggressive, but you have to get the facts right before you ask questions that are going to create an impression that's not real. So if you want to ask your question now based on those facts, we'll be happy to answer them.
Katrina, not counting per capita, we've had one of the lowest staff police departments in New Orleans for a long time.
We have 30% less people.
Post Katrina.
I know that, but you keep wanting to mix apples and oranges, and I want to get apples and apples, right? Because you have to have a force that is consistent with the need. And if the answer turns out to be that we need 300 new police officers, I will ask the citizens for the resources to hire 300 new police officers. That costs about $40 million, just to give everybody an instance of what it is that we're looking at. And if that is the answer, that is what we'll do. And I think that the people of New Orleans may be interested in doing that. But apples and apples are really an important comparison. Chief, you can answer that question if you want.
What we have to do is focus on this. In the country in 2011, 12,000 cops were laid off and 30,000 police officer positions went unfilled. The fact that we're maintaining 100% staffing of what we had, I think is great news. Some people get Cadillacs that are fully loaded. Some people get Cadillacs that don't have leather seats. The question is, what can we afford, and then how are we using what we have? I'm still not sure yet, based on being here 18 months, that we've extracted every efficiency out of all the different parts of the police department we have, which is why we invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2011 to buy those sophisticated analytic programs to tell us what we got. You wouldn't go to your doctor and ask your doctor to treat you for disease unless they had the most equipped opportunity to make the best decision analyzing data. We're still doing that. So I don't know what the answer in the long term will be, but I do know this. We have capacity to take this fight to the street, and we are, and I think you can see it.
Right. And let me just respond one more time to kind of flush this out, because I want it to be clear when you write your article tomorrow that you're writing the right facts. In every other city in America, in most of them right now, given this federal, but they have been laying off police officers in very, very large numbers. We have managed not to do that, and that is an important statistic. You can go look at Oakland. You can go look at other cities as well. Secondly, I think everybody would agree with me, and this is the work that we're doing with the Justice Department, a consent decree. The police officers that we have now, over time, can be better trained to do the work, just like the number of city employees that we have. I have said this many, many times in every speech that I have given. The first one I gave was an eyes wide open, where everybody in the city of New Orleans understands nationally where we are financially. And what's happening is Washington is kind of shutting down the pipeline of resources to the local levels. The state is shutting down the resources to the local levels, and everything is getting smaller and faster. And the challenge is, how do you actually do the basic things that government has to do with the limited amount of resources that they have given us? Because the reality is that we are limited. We're limited by a lot of stuff. So what we have to do is, with the people that we have to be better trained, we have to be better supervised, we have to be more efficient, we have to leverage our resources, we have to work together better, and it's got to be comprehensive from top to bottom, not-for-profit government, et cetera, if we're going to win this fight. But if the people of New Orleans think that all this takes is for the police department itself to do better and that everybody else doesn't have to be engaged in this fight, we're going to be engaged in a strategy that is not going to work. Everybody in the city has got to be engaged in this, beginning with parents. There was a crime the other night where a 12-year-old held a gun and held somebody up at a bus stop, a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old. Now, no numbers of police officers are going to stop a 12-year-old from putting a gun. Where were that child's parents? Right? So we all have to think about this together. I know the tendency is to be afraid, and the first reaction to being afraid is to point the finger, and then when you point the finger, you don't focus on what you have to do. We all have to do this. And some of it is institutional, some of it is structural, some of it is long-term, some of it is short-term. We all have to do it together. And I'm going to do my part. I take responsibility for organizing this effort. The buck stops with me, all right? But we're going to get after it. I have noticed a significant increase in how fast the police are getting to scenes. In the last 4 months, they have gotten on it. We have arrested people. We have sent people to the district attorney and to the courts. I'm calling on the district attorney and the judges. Everybody, has got to do their job. It's an all-hands-on-deck thing. And at the end of the day, what's got to happen is the people of New Orleans have to say this culture that we live in is an unacceptable culture, and we're going to put an end to it. And in the meantime, we're going to get there fast, we're going to do our job, and we're going to work with everybody to get this right. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.